Hey, what's up, everybody? This is A Squared, the writer with Principal Stovall with the pilot episode of The Blackboard. It's a discussion all about education. Um, and we have here one of Oakland's own. Introduce yourself to the people.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Eugene Stovall. I am the proud principal at Fruitvale Elementary Superstars. You see my superstar in the background. It's an elementary school in Oakland. I've had the privilege of serving Oakland students for the last now 11 going on 12 years. Previously, I used to teach at Baltimore City Public Schools in Baltimore City for 7 years before that. I'm actually a product of Oakland, native of Oakland. And I had to come back and really just, help my city out. And a lot of the events in my life have led me to leadership. And, in this time, I think it's more important than ever that I'm here. And so I, just want to impart some wisdom upon all the viewers. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh man, no, thank you for being a part of it, man. The slogan behind the brand I'm an ambassador for Monarchs Clothing Company is educate, inspire, change in the world. I mean, so that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what the brand is about. So it was like a perfect fix.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Today, what we'll discuss for the starting first pitch. I like to say is school versus education. Some people say the same thing, but like what you broke down to me, which I was totally unaware of, it's a big difference. So what's school? What is school?
Well, the first thing that I want to do before I even start this conversation is I would be remiss if I didn't actually give homage to someone who actually brought it to my attention. Gentleman who is a Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade. He used to teach at. He's actually a founder of a school in Oakland called Roses and Concrete. And he was the one who kind of brought it to my attention in my leadership journey. So I definitely want to pay homage to him for it. And I'm going to try to, I'm not going to use his same words, but it was definitely an enlightening experience when he brought it to me. So the difference between school and education, right? So school is, defined if you're looking at the Oxford Dictionary, and you can do just an easy Google search for this. It just says an institution for educating children is the first definition. And the second definition is any institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline, right? The thing about school is that there are certain things that people are not aware of when they're in school. There's a certain pathway, right? So even if we're talking about high school, if you're in Oakland, you have to focus on the A through G requirements. A lot of what people like to focus on in terms of getting out of school, in terms of getting good jobs, is the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so there's a heavy focus on that. California Governor Newsom just passed a law that said in any schooling institution in California, any public institution, you have to take ethnic studies. You have to take one ethnic studies class, right? Which I think is excellent if we're talking about learning about different cultures, historical figures or whatnot, right? But there's a limitation when you're talking about school. And we're beginning to see this now more than ever. Hayward Unified School District, I was reading an article just this morning about it. They're talking about closing a few elementary schools because of declining enrollment. See, we have this thing, it's called it's pretty much an algorithm that public institutions get certain amount of money based upon their enrollment patterns. And so with declining enrollment, less money to go around, districts have to make really tough decisions about closing schools. That's been a long-standing part of Oakland for quite a while, even when we were back in high school, right? And if we're talking about education is different. So Oxford Dictionary characterizes it as, number one, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. So that kind of aligns more with the schooling. But then the second definition, it just says 3 words: an enlightening experience. So, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because you can create an enlightening experience anywhere you are. It does not have to be in a building. It does not have to have 4 walls. You know, you can get enlightening experiences just in your traveling. You know, one of the philosophers says that experience is always the best teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're out in the world talking to people that you've never discussed topics with before, having circles. Shout out to my boy Ruben Roberts. He's a restorative justice coordinator, and he actually used to work with me at a middle school I used to work at a few years ago. He holds like healing circles. You know, right now we have all kinds of murders in Oakland. He's holding space at Lake Merritt most Thursdays to be able to hold healing circles for the community of, you know, victims of gun violence. Getting out of your neighborhood, getting out of your community, and getting into a retreat type of atmosphere, and holding space, reading a book, right? Just going and sitting down by the ocean, or, you know, overlooking a forest, or, you know, just deciding you want to sit at Starbucks, or just even sitting in your car at a bus stop, reading a book. It's an enlightening experience. The difference is that your education is, you can never stop learning. Like when you're done with school, that's it. School's over. You get your little degree, your little certificate. It says, this is what you're worth, because that's really what it is. This is what you're worth. This is how much money you can make based upon a job that you can get within that specific field, right? But education, if you educate yourself enough, possibilities are endless for what you can do. You know, take this podcast, for example. You know, you have this great idea, 3 Monarchs, and you're bringing truth to power, which is, you know, having conversations with folks who, you know, do this for a living, bringing it to the world, bringing it to people who are like us, who want to learn more. And that's not in the field of schooling at all. This is not school. This is all education. And so I just want viewers to understand that it's extremely important for you to be involved in your children's education, because when you're in school, your kids are going to have an experience based upon whatever that teacher is teaching them, whatever that school is promoting, right? At Fruitvale, we try to promote 3 specific things. We try to promote strength-based practices, youth-centered, and culturally congruent practices. And, you know, a shout out to my other friend, Robert Jackson. He's the co-founder of a group called Beats, Rhymes, and Life, where they use hip hop to be able to teach children how to search their feelings and how to focus on whatever it is that they're going through social emotionally. So those 3 standards for us, you know, culturally congruent is just basically having information that is culturally relevant. It's not just focused on like a Western philosophy, you know, it's looking at a worldview, because we have a lot of different students we serve. Latinos, African Americans, particularly, and then we have a growing population of Yemeni American students who are Arabic speaking. And then we have a lot of other things under the sun: Vietnamese, Japanese, Chinese, various different Middle Eastern groups, various different Native Indigenous groups to the Americas. You know, we have a growing European population as well. So we're seeing that we have to focus all of our efforts on making sure that the content is diverse enough where everybody's getting information about themselves and is feeling good about themselves. So culturally congruent, strength-based practices. I think this is a real hard one for a lot of people. When you see a kid doing things that are wrong, or quote unquote wrong, right? You want to be able to shift their practice in a way that makes them feel as though they're not being pathologized. So they're not being casted as like a bad kid, right? They're not being judged. And so if you see a kid continuously yelling, continuously kicking, right, screaming, your first instinct is to tell them, hey, stop. You know, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? That's like the old classical type of mind frame. Like you look at it, intervene. But we like to focus a lot on prevention. So even if I'm seeing something like that, I'll say to a kid, wow, you have a lot of energy right now. Let's see if we can leverage that energy into something that's going to foster you for your educational purposes. And of course, I wouldn't say it like that, but you know, I'm saying in a way that's going to reframe their behavior and support what it is that they're doing, as like, it's good that you have that energy. We want to foster that, right? But we want to be able to shift it into a way that is actually going to support you in the structure that you're in, which is this thing called school, right? Because another part of school is society.
Mm-hmm.
Society is another type of school, and this is my kind of my opinion. You know, if you're in, what do they say? If you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. You want to blend in, right? You don't want to stick out. Like Americans, we have this very huge bravado. You know, we like to do everything big. You know, we like to talk big. We like to dress big. We like to drive big. We like to live big, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're in that standpoint, you know, students have to understand, how do they fit in to that schooling or society, if you will? Do they want to live to that expectation of doing everything big if they're Americans, or do they kind of want to fly underneath the radar? Mm-hmm. You know, for myself, I like to fly underneath the radar. Now, when I was younger, I like to dress a little loud and, you know, put some bigger rims on my car and put a little bit more knock in it, things like that, to stand out a little bit. But we know that's part of Oakland, right? That's part of the culture, which I love.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, how does that work?
Yeah.
So, you know, being strength-based, and then youth-centered is, of course, it speaks for itself, right? Children have to do the heavy lifting of any kind of learning. So one of the things I like to talk to my teachers about right now in the school is that, you know, if you're doing the majority of the talking, what are students doing? Are they talking with each other? Are they communicating with each other? Are they able to make connections from what they're reading to their daily lives? Are they able to make connections from that word problem in math to their daily lives, or to something that they might see in society, right?
Yeah.
They have to do the heavy lifting. The youth have to be the center, the apex of the educational arena, because if they're not the ones talking about the instruction or the knowledge or the wisdom that's being imparted to them, then you're just, as a teacher, recycling what the actual plan is, but kids are just going to go along with it. And that's kind of what school has become, just the go along, get along gang, as Kwame Brown likes to say. Shout out to Kwame Brown. Getting with the go along, get along gang. Like, I'm just going to do it because that's what everybody else is doing. But in order for there to really be a change, you have to put that trust in the youth, even if it's going to take them a little bit more time, even if it doesn't align with the pacing of the curriculum. You still want to impart those opportunities for them to talk with each other, right? So I know I've kind of belabored the point, but
no, that ties in. You know, I guess what I gathered from it, you know, school is something that's structured, you know, that's going to teach you just the basics. That's it. You know, education teaches you to be a critical thinker. Education is something that makes you a better all around, you know, person. And as a teacher, if you're in that position, you know, like you said, you could go in there and teach a child on a blackboard, tell them, you know, the basis, you know, whatever subject you teach them. But to really educate them, it's empower them. Is to look at that child and see their natural ability, you know, whether or not they're using it in the correct way or not, but helping them to enhance their natural ability.
That's right.
And today, and I think you will agree, in the communities that, you know, that we live in these school systems, because I went to school in San Francisco and in Oakland, so I know just a tad bit of how, you know, it's the same. Mm-hmm. They don't teach, I hate to say it, but curriculum is not based on helping kids of color better themselves. It's just not. It's just not.
I would 1,000% agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that all over the country right now. One of the biggest debates in any kind of social media forum is the critical race theory. You know, and all of these politicians directly in the red states are afraid of Black and brown people empowering themselves to understand how they were persecuted in this country and before that, and how this country was founded. But they just want to completely forget about that and just go to the kumbaya, we just holding hands, everything is good, right? While they're making money hand over fist at the detriment of not only Black and brown people, but also white people too, the status quo, right? so you say critical, right? Like critical thinking means I give you a question and then you decide what it means for you. You know, in school, we always teach that there is a right or a wrong answer. There is no, gray area. It's either black or white. You're either right or you're wrong. That's it. And it doesn't leave very much for, like you said, black and brown people. I mean, I've talked about this many times. One of the things I would love to do at Fruitvale, or any school that I work at, or any school in the past that I've worked at, bringing back the home economics, bringing back the wood shop class, bringing back the automotive class. There was a time where you could actually graduate from high school and be fully certified as an automotive mechanic, fully certified as a carpenter, fully certified as an HVAC, fully certified as a plumber. And these are jobs that are union jobs. Now, I know there's a lot of stress on unions right now because, of course, unions are taking a lot of so-called quote unquote taxpayers' dollars and leveraging them to be able to provide these pensions for people after they turn the age of 55 or whatnot. That's a completely different story. We can talk about that too. But the fact of the matter, if you're talking about black and brown people, I love college, but I believe that college is a it's a money game. 25% of people who actually go to college actually graduate. And if you're looking at college graduates now, you're seeing a huge difference in the gender gap. Like women are outpacing men when it comes to graduation rates, 60% to 40% right now, I think is a study that I was reading. And that does not mean to say that college is a bad thing. I mean, I'm a college graduate. I graduated from San Francisco State, my bachelor's degree in liberal studies. I graduated from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore with my master's degree in education. And I've thought about going back and getting my PhD or my, educational doctorate. But, I'm not sure if that's really what I want to do based upon where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
But college, that 4-year institution, is not for everybody. Some people like to work with their hands. Some people like to do different things. And then you have this entire other sensationalism around social media, YouTube. So you got these kids like my son, he's in high school now, but he's on YouTube all the time working his channel, bringing education around like, video game play, or, just in terms of lighting his room. Like he put up all these different like kinds of lights in his room, and he's bringing up tutorials on how to do that. And, he's getting views, he's getting clicks, he's getting likes. And, he has an auntie who's been doing that. And that's how she's made her bread and butters. She's certified on Instagram, and she's able to make a considerable amount of cash flow based upon her dietitianary work. So, there are different pathways that I don't think that school does a real good service to our communities, especially black and brown, when it comes to what you can actually make out of your life. I mean, calculus is great, but calculus is not going to be for everybody. Calculus is for your engineers, people who are programming the things that we're looking at right now in order to be able to have this conversation on a Zoom meeting, right? It's something that we don't really want to, and this is kind of hard to say, but I don't really feel like we want to educate our society. We want to provide good workers. Yeah. You have a grade A, B, C, D, or an F, right? Same kind of grade that we give food, A, B, C, D, or F grades, right? But the world doesn't work in that anymore. It's much more fluid. We have a global economy, and if we're not understanding the different cultures that we come into contact with, if we don't understand our history, like the real history, not the watered down history that makes a certain segment of the population look better than the other, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, that's not going to be able to sustain a society of thinkers coming out of the United States, regardless of what color you are. We're in a global market. Yeah. And in order for this global market in order for us to be able to thrive in it, we have to get creative about where we're at. Yeah. And that means making some changes.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Well, I think we covered that pretty well. I think we covered that pretty well. So, the next time we'll meet up, we'll talk about the importance of education.
Okay.
We'll go into greater detail of why a parent, why a teacher, what I'm saying, that that's your job. Why should we all understand the importance of education?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of briefly touched on it, but we're gonna go, dive a little deeper into it on the next episode. So until next time, if you're watching, questions or comments or whatever, please, post it, DM it, or send us an email. And until next time, remember, educate and inspire, through action. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna say this too. If you guys want to come and talk to me, I have my website, Fruitvale School, OUSD.org. That's again, Fruitvale School, OUSD.org. You can always shoot me a mail. I respond to them all the time. Please, if you want to continue the dialogue, I would love to be able to continue that with you guys.
All right. Well, y'all heard it. You know what I'm saying? It's all about community involvement, and it takes a village to raise a child. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So until next time, man, y'all be smooth.
Peace.